It was a cold night in the outskirts of South San Francisco, and Mrs. Shaw stood at Mr. Shaw's desk in the study of their cold one-story house. "Yes, dear," Mr. Shaw said. "I'm writing an important email to the CEO of Apple. I'll be in the kitchen in a moment. You don't need to worry." "Yes, yes." Mrs. Shaw cut Mr. Shaw off hurriedly. "But Raj has been breaking into one of his fits. He stole the stapler off my bed, and when I told him to give it back, he had a tantrum. Please, what do I do? He's been breaking into fits all month." "It is our fault for spoiling him for 7 years," Mr. Shaw said dryly. And I dare say that if he doesn't learn something on the yearly trip to India, my name's not Krishna Shah Jr., he finished. Mrs. Shaw went to bed with butterflies in her stomach. The Raj dilemma, as she called it, was growing and growing. I should probably explain who I am and how I know all this. I'm Raj's babysitter, 17 and a half years old, though I'd prefer not to reveal my name if you don't mind. With Raj having 2 working parents, I experience a lot more of Raj's antics than Mr. and Mrs. Shaw do, like the time we were playing tiddlywinks, and Raj cried because one of the counters went behind the sofa. I know this story better than anyone, and I go everywhere with the Shaw family, even on their India trips, because my parents thought it might be an interesting experience for me. We were on the plane to India. Raj moved in his chair and asked, "Mommy, why are we going to India?" "Well, Grandma and Grandpa will be waiting for us. They haven't seen you in a long time. Will there be presents? I want presents." Mrs. Shaw looked helplessly at her husband. "Just be more responsible, Raj," Mr. Shaw yelled, though responsible wasn't the right word at all. The shuffling of a newspaper was heard, and Mrs. Shaw sighed a long and deep sigh. Her husband seemed to be part of the problem, and she was trying to ignore both her husband and Raj's temper. Mrs. Shaw also had feelings, not of temper, but of despair. With Raj's begging and her husband's total lack of interest in the problem, things were getting way worse. A small sound escaped Raj's lips. Present. Mrs. Shaw closed her eyes in a mood of absolute despair. Leo, Raj's grandparents' friend's son, started talking. He had just bought Raj a snack, and Raj had said, "Can't you get something better?" ungratefully. "No, I cannot afford," he said quietly. "I'll tell you. Before I was 5, my parents had no jobs, no toys, food, nothing." Raj suddenly felt a feeling he'd never felt before. It was sympathy, something he'd never felt. He listened, feeling sad, to Leo talk on and on about his life. His face still had no toy, still poor, he finished. His face suddenly brightened. "Play Parcheesi?" Leo asked. They exchanged mysterious glances and began to play. "I've been thinking about how you, told me you have no toy." He thrust forward a small package. "Here." Leo frowned. "What is it?" "A present. Open it." Leo cautiously tore the ribbon off the package and ripped open the box. Inside lay a small box of holiday Lego. He smiled and accepted the box. "Raj," I yelled, "time to go." As Raj, his parents, and myself walked out the tall gray door of Grandpa and Grandma Shaw's flat, Raj smiled at Leo for the first time in his 7-year life. He felt truly generous. We looked ahead onto the steps, past the steps to space gray and crystal white birds as beautiful as peacocks, loud music playing, and big painted trucks rolling through the streets. One last wave, one last smile, and one last tear from Mrs. Shaw and Grandma Shaw, and we walked out the door.